Okay, this is a continuation of the Introduction to Nanotechnology slideshow. So now I want to focus on nanoscience versus nanotechnology, and there is a very important difference between the two. And in order to understand that difference, if you first think about what is science and what is technology, I think what is nanoscience versus nanotechnology becomes a little bit more clear. So according to the American Press Dictionary of Science and Technology, science is the systemic observation of natural events and conditions in order to discover facts about them and to formulate laws and principles based on these facts. So to discover facts, to understand things, discover things, that's science. So what is technology? Technology is a body of knowledge used to create tools, develop skills, and extract or collect materials, and the application of science to meet an objective or solve a problem based on the National Institutes of Health. So when I think of technology, I think of the application of science to meet an objective or solve a problem. So science is understanding. Technology is solving a problem. That's really how I think of the two. So let's do some examples. Here's an example. The discovery of how the gecko lizard can walk on ceilings and stick on glass walls of an aquarium. So we figured out, how does a gecko do that? Is that nanoscience or nanotechnology? Well, nanoscience. You got it right. What about this one? The discovery that the myosin protein acts like a linear motor. So a protein is a molecule. Here's a myosin protein is a molecule, right? Acts like a linear motor. To contract a muscle, the myosin molecule walks in nano-sized steps along the microfilament. As the myosin molecule walks, it pulls on the microfilament. I think this must be like a muscle cell. Microfilament, causing the muscle cells to contract. Oh, sorry, that's nanoscience. So we discovered how does, exactly molecularly, how do your muscles contract? And found that they have this myosin protein that does it. And that's nanoscience because it's just understanding something. Now let's see if I don't mess this up. What about a liposome, which is a tiny nanoparticle or vacated sphere made out of the same material as a cell membrane? So I use the word cell in here a couple times. I want to make sure it's clear. A liposome is like a sphere made out of like lipids, okay? Research is being done to fill a liposome cell. I call it cell. It's not like a human living cell. It's just a liposome sphere, I should have put, with drugs. Fill that sphere with drugs and inject it into the bloodstream. Using the properties associated with the liposome's membrane, it will connect to a cancerous tumor, and then the drugs will come out of the liposome sphere and kill the cancerous cells. And that way the drugs don't go all over your whole body and interrupt everything. They're really focused on the cancer cells because the liposome sphere that's holding the drug gets attracted to the cancer cells. Okay. So is this thing using a liposome, which is a nanoparticle, is that nanotechnology or nanoscience? Of course, it's nanotechnology because it's solving a problem. Next, carbon nanotubes use the properties of carbon to form tubes with a length to diameter ratio greater than 1 million. Scientists are using these CNTs as electrical connections for micro and nano-sized electronics, like transistors, fibers 20 times stronger than bullet-resistant Kevlar fibers, and surfaces slicker than Teflon. So is this or these applications of carbon nanotubes nanoscience or nanotechnology? If you said nanotechnology, you got it right. So hopefully it's kind of clear, becoming clear what the difference between nanoscience and nanotechnology is. And the next section I want to go over is history. Richard Smalley, who is a 1996 Nobel laureate in chemistry, said, "Nanotechnology is the builder's final frontier." Okay, I think he actually is one of the ones that discovered the buckyball, which I think he's holding here. Where all these corners are would be a carbon atom if this were an actual, buckyball. Nanotechnology has been practiced by humans for over 2,000 years. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you think of it as being, high tech and just recent and modern, but it's been practiced by humans for over 2,000 years. We now know that a cup made by the Romans 1,700 years ago used nanotechnology. How do we know that? Well, we wouldn't have known that even 200 years ago. We know that now because we have the technology to understand things at the nanoscale. So this is called the Lycurgus cup, and in class I'll show you a video on it. I should have just put it in this slideshow. But it contains gold and silver nanoparticles, and it looks different colors if it's transmitting the light or reflecting the light, and it's super cool. I don't know, it's just very cool. But it's all because of the silver and gold nanoparticles that are embedded in the cup's ceramic that makes up the cup. Another one is we now know that the beautiful stained glass windows made 1,600 years ago by the ancient Irish also used nanotechnology. Again, we just found out because we just learned how to see the nanoparticles they use. We have the technology to do that now. And this is a picture of the south window in the transept at Canterbury Cathedral. So beautiful. We also know that the beautiful plates made by the Renaissance Italians 500 years ago also used nanotechnology. Again, because we can now see the nanoparticles. And these are some of the beautiful plates made in the 16th century Renaissance. Really amazing. Copper nanoparticles, silver Look at these silver nanoparticles are golden. Why? You'll find out. Okay, so if nanotechnology has been practiced really by humans for almost 2,000 years, why is it such a big deal now? And that's because we've learned what's going on. We still have a lot more to learn, but we're learning what's going on. We can controllably and repeatedly make things in the nano size range. We could use those unique properties to our advantage, and we can see what we've made. Important is that we can controllably and repeatably make things in the nanoscale range. For example, today's transistors in 2020 are in the, I want to say, 3 to 5 nanometer range. Maybe even a little less than 3 nanometers, but in that single-digit nanometer range, which is outdated for this example here in 2008. There are more nanoscale transistors are made in a year than there are grains of rice grown in a year. I'm sure that's still true. And we have really learned how to build at the nanoscale. And actually at the SUNY Poly campus, companies come together in like a consortium, and they all work on the same machines. Those machines inside SUNY Poly cost, I think, close to $1 billion, right? And each company can't spend that kind of money like repeatedly to upgrade their machinery and then do their research. It's just not sustainable economically. So SUNY Poly and these people get together and they build the machines, and each of the companies can use the machines to try to develop their next generation, transistors and chips and other things like that. And so we are located in a really cool place because of the work that's done right next to us. Okay, I kind of am going to go through these because look at the following pictures, a cross-section of an actual man-made transistor around 2002. That's really almost old news now because of the things that are going on. But even this old picture is just super tiny, 50 nanometers long for a transistor. And some of you, if you're in computer science, you'll learn about the gates and the transistors, and we will too later on in this course. But it is still super amazing, but we are 10 times smaller now. Not we, but the people that do this stuff are 10 times smaller now than this picture, and that's pretty crazy amazing. All right, we can also see atoms now. This next graph shows 48 atoms that have been dragged across the surface individually and arranged into a circle or a corral. And this arrangement has been given the name quantum corral. And you should be able to see the individual atoms in the corral and also the atoms making up the underlying surface. And this was done using an instrument called the scanning tunneling microscope. So here's a picture of the quantum corral, and each of these bumps here is an atom. And there's another image of it. And hopefully we'll get into a little bit on how some of these images are made. So obviously, because we have nanotechnology and they're manufacturing things, and the research just blows my mind, but it's now manufacturable into chips and a whole bunch of other things, that they have nanotechnology particles in your clothing so that they don't get bacteria laden and smell. They have nanotechnology in the medicine that you use. It's in almost, as we talked earlier today, in everything. So very, very rich uses, applications. Okay, so some key ideas that we would have talked about in these two sections of video. The nanoscale refers to the size from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometers approximately. Nanotechnology is the making and using of things which are in this size range to solve problems or, improve things, to do something. Nanotechnology is the builder's last frontier. Nanotechnology has actually been around for almost 2,000 years, and it is emerging now, or I should say in the last 20 years or so, because we've really learned how to manipulate and understand things of that size, and we can control and repeatably do things at that size. Because of the advances that have been achieved, we can see nanotechnology is now manufacturable. Nanotechnology can now produce things in huge numbers and economically. So that's the end. A lot of information in that video.